Hi, I'm Michelle Blue. I'm a millennial entrepreneur and started a business just 2 weeks after I graduated college. It's my life and I don't even know. Okay, each week I'm interviewing an entrepreneur, getting a real look at their stories, the lessons, the sacrifices along their journey.
And leadership is hard, and you have to live at home, and entrepreneurship is not easy.
Truly walk by faith and not by sight, and your life being a direct reflection of that belief system.
So, for the fellow entrepreneur, hopeful entrepreneur, or whatever path you decided to take in life, just know that the beauty lies within the journey.
Watching?
The journey.
The journey. All right, I'm going to be watching. All right.
Chelsea, were we both dairy ambassadors?
Yes.
Okay, we were both dairy ambassadors in college. And so we obviously we're in the same spaces, same circles, and always kept track of each other. But you're a couple years younger than me. And recently you reached out because you were like, oh, I have, this life coaching called Tribe 29 for, entrepreneur female women. I was like, oh, this is really cool. So between me traveling and you, you've been around the world. You took time and lived in Spain. I've been trying to join in on these calls.
Yes.
But I've been following more closely into your work and what you're saying. And I was like, okay. It's this is cool stuff. And I know that you specifically talk through, these kind of principles specifically for female entrepreneurs. But I'm like, this is good for entrepreneurs, but this is good for life, whatever you decide to do, whatever career path. And so I guess you can tell us a little bit more about what Tribe 29 is. But there's a specific piece that I'm like, okay, I need to learn more about this. But give me Tribe 29.
Yeah, so Tribe 29 is mainly a group for entrepreneurial women to come together and really support each other in the journey. Because when you're starting a business, a lot of times you feel alone. And there's a lot of times where you can't really talk to either your employees or the people in the company because there's something that you, personal issues that you are dealing with. So you want to reach out to people that are on your level or that are doing it with you. So it's really nice to just celebrate and share challenges with other women in a space of consciousness. So everybody in the community or in the tribe is really focused on consciousness.
Yeah.
So basically tying in spirituality with quantum mechanics and laws of attraction and manifestation and all of that, and really leading business through a place of intuition versus just logic, which is kind of counterintuitive.
I know, that was does that make sense, right? But yeah.
Yeah, and it's really important to get in touch with intuition and really to go inside and ask yourself, what is it that I really want? What do I want to do? What do I want to do with this decision? What do I want to do in this business direction? I have someone interested in investing. Is this the right thing to do? I'd lose X% of the company. Sometimes a lot of people, their first instinct is to go out and ask a friend or to ask somebody. And what I do is I help women strengthen their intuition so that they can go inward and be like, okay, what is it that's really best for me? What should I be doing here? And a lot of personal development is all about do this, do this, do this, try this. And a lot of times it's really good for learning things and implementing new tools into your life. But unless you're actually taking the step to go inward and do something with everything that you learned, it doesn't really do much. So coaching is the other part of Tribe 29. So it's a community of women for entrepreneurs, but it's also for women that are finding their Ikigai, which I'll talk to you about.
Ikigai. I'm like, oh, can I say it correctly? Ikigai.
Ikigai, yeah.
I will get it correct, I promise.
And it's coaching those women on really stepping into their purpose. And then also running retreats around the world to get people out of the United States, out of the box that we live in here, kind of remove ourselves from financial situations or just really the situation that they're currently in, and just saying, let's put you in a new place where people are totally happy and in a culture that is very different. and they don't need a lot of money to be happy. Like, what would you do if you weren't doing it for money? And you kind of get out of that, and that's why I wanted to do a retreat, because it's mixing in coaching, but it's removing you from your everyday life and putting yourself into a new environment.
Yeah, I think that's such an important piece. The countries abroad that I've traveled, you realize the spirit is different.
Yeah.
We have so much. We have in the level of abundance and stuff, and a lot of stuff. But the ability to be free and to be yourself and to just like have pure peace and joy is something completely different.
Yeah.
Like just the happiness, that pure bliss that I don't quite see in us here. And that's pretty troubling though, right? And it's just a level of our culture and the level of expectations and the pressures that we have on ourselves, the demands that kind of prevent us to not tap into our inner and not tap into our intuition. And so that's been so much of my place of I've gone through so much in the last year and a half where I was stripped, and I just had this conversation, I was stripped so much of my identity of Michelle as an entrepreneur and Benet, like that this is it, to really focus on Michelle and who am I, like what is my soul, what is my soul purpose, and so that was obviously one of the reasons why I was even drawn to the things that you were saying, because it was such a reflection of where I was and what I've gone through. And so, okay, I'm going to say this again. Ikigai, was it lighting your Ikigai?
Yeah.
So, first of all, what is Ikigai? And then how do we light it? Like, how do we light it up?
Yeah, awesome. Light Your Ikigai is the name of the retreat. And Ikigai is a Japanese term. It means reason for being. And it's the intersection of what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you can be paid for. So a lot of times people choose a profession, and you spend 70% of your time or more at this job, and they don't really take into account that it's more than just about money. They're only focusing on one thing. They don't really put all the pieces together of what the world needs, what they're good at, and what they love, and they're only focused on what they can make money at. And a lot of times money is a means goal and not an end goal, and sometimes people think that it's the end goal. And then they have it and they realize, like, this isn't it. This isn't what I wanted, or the way I got about it isn't fulfilling. So they go back to the drawing board and they create a new goal, and they climb up this ladder and they get to a new goal. And they keep doing this, and maybe they're hitting these goals, but when they get to the top, they're like, I don't feel fulfilled and I don't know why. And it's just this constant, this game, I feel like. I was just in Barcelona talking to a guy who started at least 6 companies, and he's in his 30s, and he's just been, he's had a very successful career. He had a massive depression, and he was just really unhappy. And it was just this game he was playing of really trying to keep hitting these goals, and he was like, what is it? And it was, something a lot deeper that we went into coaching discussions on, but it's not all about accomplishment. And I think people get, in this culture specifically, really caught up in that. And you even said it in the beginning, like, different cultures and different places in the world have different energies. I think that our culture has a very strong value system around success, around accomplishment, and making money, and it is super important, but I think that it should go a step further than that for fulfillment.
Yeah. One thing that, because I was mulling over this because I was going through so much in my own life, and this summer when we had, like, the back-to-back suicides with Kate Spade and Anthony Bourdain, and obviously mental health and depression and everything took a part in that, and so it really broke my heart to even see this. Of course, I don't know these people, but we see them on TV, and they've amassed these great successes, right? And we sit in these positions from our sofas, from our homes, and we're like, but if only I could have this much money, or if I could, like, have my clothing line in all these stores, then I'll be happy and I'll be okay. Then everything works, then everything else will work together. And you realize that's not the case. Like you can't build into these things and not take care of self.
Yeah.
And so those are really tragic, heartbreaking stories where I was like, we have to talk about this, and I'm not anywhere close to their levels of success, but I know I have to start now. I know I have to, be mindful. I have to be intentional. I have to tap into something so much greater now. And hopefully that allows me to be a better person, a better entrepreneur in everything to grow, my businesses or my show or whatever the case may be. So I think it's really important. Sorry, tangent, but
It's so related too.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think a lot of people get into that whole, when I make money, or if I were just this person, if I was rich, if I had my clothes in every single clothing store, then I would be happy. Versus maybe the other way around of, how can I be happy having nothing? And really think about okay, can I kind of decrease the things that I have in my life, make it more simple, and actually get clear on what my values are and how I can be happy, and then start that business from a place of love versus a place of fear. Because if you're starting it from a place of fear, like, oh, I need money right now, what can I do to make money? That's not intentional.
Yeah.
And if you're starting from a place of love and having self-love, that's why everyone's preaching about self-love. But
Mm-hmm.
if you really think about it, that is the highest vibrational energy. And if you're operating,
It's hard.
it's hard to
I
get
think
there.
It's really the hardest.
Yeah.
place to be.
It is. It takes a lot of internal work. And the business isn't going to fix that, right? Starting a business might raise your vibrational energy temporarily to give you a feeling of accomplishment. But if your expectations are so high and you don't meet them, you'll have disappointment. So you'll keep dropping your energy levels instead of just getting to a place where you're constantly, you know how to work with yourself to get yourself in a state of love and just to really come into your own self-worth before going and starting the businesses and doing all of these things.
Yeah, because
And
business is false fulfillment.
yeah,
That's not what, being full and whole really is. Because anything can happen. Like I shared, we went through a situation where our manufacturer cheated us of a significant amount of fabric, which is almost $40,000 in projected revenues for us. The failures are going to happen, the successes are going to happen, and everything else in between. But that can't be your fulfilling. That can't be your metric for happiness, for peace, for joy. It's so fleeting. It's so volatile. We can't control that.
yeah,
The only thing we
absolutely.
can do is control within. And so that's what makes it that much more important to start with self and make sure you are sustainably well,
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Making sure that your internal system matches your external. And you'll notice that things that come into your life almost serve as a mirror. So if you're experiencing something, it's almost important, instead of blaming it on the external, to look internally and say, okay, why am I reacting this way? And almost just observing it. And I think that's why meditation is so important, because it forces you to really just sit in your thoughts and feel them versus judging them or trying to pass them off on other people or trying to make them go away. It's feeling the emotions and observing them and just asking yourself, why am I feeling this way? And what can I do internally to take an action, make it better, or whatever action. It doesn't even need to be make it better. It can just be to take some sort of an action.
Right.
Because it doesn't need to be erased. It's not negative emotions aren't necessarily bad. They just provide more information and insight into your next step.
Right.
So, yeah, I think meditation is a huge part of this too.
Yeah.
And just really dropping into your body and getting out of your mind, so that you're kind of more internally processing things and you're more grounded.
Yeah. So going back to lighting your Ikigai. So we said it's the intersection of these 5 things and the meeting. What is the practice? How do we exercise finding those things, like for people who are watching or listening, what can they do? How do I do this? Like, tell me, walk Michelle through this. So, how do I find my Ikigai, my purpose, like at its core?
Yeah, that's a good question, and that's a big question. I don't think it's something that happens overnight. I think it's really a process of, first of all, taking the time to invest in yourself, whether that's having a coach or going to a conference or doing something where you're really investing time into yourself, and that's the best thing that you can invest money into, right? Like actually putting money into, like, if you're not asking yourself the questions, having someone else elicit the questions to ask. And it's really just asking yourself the questions and putting yourself in experiences that help you determine those things. Like looking back on your life, like even you, like what are some of the things that you're really, really good at that you just know you're good at?
Yeah.
Like
I guess I can
yeah, you can answer, yeah.
Being like having a friendly energy, like allowing people to be able to trust me, like off rip. I think that's a special gift that I have.
Like gaining trust with people and being friendly and just being open. Yeah, I feel that energy too. Yeah. And then it's also combining that with what is one thing in the world that pisses you off about the world? Like what is something that like you want to change that almost like it makes you angry that it exists?
Am I supposed to answer this too?
Yeah.
Oh my god, no, I should never put myself on the spot. Now I think. Obviously, I think it's people not moving in their purpose.
Yeah.
It's one of those things, it's like, because we get so attached to the money and comfort, that like we get so trapped and confined by those things that we're not like being the highest and best of ourselves. Like we're not being able to express and be authentic in who we are,
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's awesome. So I actually resonate with that a lot too, because that's why I'm doing a lot of this. I love seeing people, especially creatives, live in their purpose. And then personally, it's me helping those people like earn money and sustain themselves doing what they love.
Yeah.
So what's one way that you use, like, so there's what you're really good at, what the world needs, how you can make money, and what you love. So like combining making money with what you love.
Right, I'm still trying to
like,
figure all that out. How to make money, how do I sustain my life too?
Yeah.
Because it is important. I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh no, forget the money. Because, we have to eat. You have to live. I pay $12.50 in rent in New York City right now for a room. So it's like making sure that I can live a life, as well, but not allowing the money to dictate everything around, what I do.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously you don't figure it out in one day, but it is a process where you go through and you ask yourselves these really deep questions, and you really go in and just feel, and you go back even into your like childhood and all of that, and really ask yourself like, what did I love growing up? Like what did I love as a kid? Like what made me happy?
Yeah.
And what does the world need now, and how can I earn money doing that? So once we get into this process with clients, like once I coach clients, take them on retreats, things like that, the second step is actually making that reality.
Yeah.
So I was a products manager at IBM for a while, and my job was literally to bring products to market, go through the entire process of ideation to creation, sense and respond, putting it out into the market and readjusting. And doing that and taking those people and those creatives on this journey to actually make it happen and make it real. Because it's like, it's great to have an idea, but then it's really, really great to put that idea into action and kind of give those people some concrete steps around that. So it's kind of a two-part thing. I really I'm focusing on the Ikigai, but I don't want to just leave people hanging after they have found it. So that's the next step.
And so I think that's obviously a good transition. It's like you have to start with your core, start with your purpose and your why, and then even after that, and I know a lot of people are like, well, they know deep down what they're supposed to be doing, you know?
Yeah.
And the work that they're set here to do, the lives that they're, set here to impact or build, create, manifest, but they don't know how. Like, what's that next step, right? Like, whether it's like fear that keeps them from taking the leap, or like literally not knowing what's the next step in business. So I think it's important. But I guess what in your two-step process, what do you typically see is like keeping people from making that business a reality?
Fear, absolutely. Number one, hands down, is fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of failing, sometimes fear of success, sometimes fear of not stepping into their own power. So it's a lot of fear, and fear can stem from a lot of things. That's kind of where all the questioning comes in. Like, what is this fear coming from, and how can you overcome it? And even people like Tim Ferriss talk about fear a lot, and imagining the worst case possible scenario, and then asking yourself, if this happened, could I live with it? And sometimes that gives people confidence of like, okay, if this is the worst thing that can happen, I can do it. And sometimes that helps people step into it. There's a lot of different ways to do it. I think it's really just identifying what it is first, because a lot of people don't actually know, or they're scared to commit to one thing. Because there's a lot of multi-passionate people out there, and that's not a bad thing. It's just about choosing something and just building off of it and growing. You don't have to do it for the rest of your life, but have your core, like whatever your core purpose is and your reason for being, doesn't have to be your job, but your job has to be contributing to that purpose. So maybe your reason for being is helping people maximize their potential. So whatever job you're doing should help you in that mission and give you those skills, and maybe it's just to love and create love. Whatever that is, it's different for every single person, and that's something that there's no right or wrong. It's just really what you believe deep down to be that reason for being, and just really aligning that. A lot of people live out of alignment with what they want and what they think that they want, and then they're doing something totally different anyways. So just really aligning that, getting your heart and your mind aligned as well.
I didn't, how you say like Tim Ferriss was like, if the worst thing happened, would you be able to live with that? And I didn't even realize, because I basically asked myself the same questions when I was debating, okay, I'm graduating from college, I'm going to start my business full time, okay. And I was asking myself, Michelle, if you grow this and it fails, what's the worst thing that can happen? Because, thankfully, I didn't have any college debt, and so I don't have that burden. I'm not married. I don't have kids. So if it fails, it's just me. If it fails, I can still go and get a job, right? So, and I was like, I'm okay with that. I was more scared of not going for it, of living a life and always questioning, what if?
Yes.
That's scary to me. It's not being bold.
Yeah.
Because even Garrett was on the show. It's like courage over fear. All you need is 20 seconds of courage. And in that moment, I chose to live bold in my life. Now, was it perfect? No. There definitely could have been other ways I did it, but I'm so thankful, because I would have constantly in my head been like, what if, what could have come from this? Was I being true to myself? What was, what kept me from what I felt like was my purpose and what I thought that I could do, and create. And so I think that's really important. And then when it comes to fear, there's this quote, Michael Jordan, in some of his shoes, it's on the tissue paper, and I can't even remember, but it's fear is a false illusion of, I don't remember, but it's so good. I'm gonna have to put this in the notes, because it was so powerful and it's so true. I posted a picture on the Journey with Blue Instagram a while ago, and there was a circle, and this ant would stay within the confines of the circle, and then they drew another circle within the circle, and again the ant stayed within that limitation.
Yeah.
And so it's that false illusion, whatever our brain tells us is our confine, is what will stay within.
Yeah,
And so,
absolutely.
like that ant, fear is constantly reducing us
Yeah.
to something so much lesser than what we can actually do and what we're called to do.
Yes, exactly. And yeah, I totally resonate with all of that.
Yeah.
And there's nothing that separates you from being a president or being like the best designer in the world, the best clothing, whatever in the world.
Yeah.
It's just sometimes your own mental limitations of like, what am I capable of? What can I do? And you almost put yourself in a box of like, okay, this is all that I know, so I'm going to stay here. And as soon as you expand the circle and it gets bigger, you start to realize, okay, I can do more. Like, I have more confidence, and you start to realize that there's so much more that you don't know. So then you start to learn more, and your circle keeps getting bigger and bigger. And I think sometimes it's really important to surround yourself with people who are expanding you and expanding your own mind, asking you questions to kind of say, hey, like, can I think bigger? Can I do bigger? But also coming back to the center of like, is it important to be bigger? Is this what I want? And because really anything is possible in the world, as long as you're staying true to like your own like center of like, this is my operating from, this is my reason for being. And then like, life is a playground and you can literally do anything, and it doesn't have to be restricted by money, which is kind of the craziest part. But it doesn't have to be this means of trade. You can trade skills, you can trade talents, you can couch surf if you need to. You know, like, there's ways to make it happen and also be happy. I had a friend sleeping on my couch for a year, starting his photography business. Now he's doing really, really well, filming or shooting models in New York City. And he had to go through that phase, but he was happy when he was doing it because he was living out his purpose. He didn't care he was sleeping on a couch. He was like, this is my dream and I'm making it happen. And that was fulfilling for him. It wasn't even the goal, it was just the process. And that was beautiful. I don't know if I'm going on a tangent, but...
No, you're not. Even for me, after I graduated, like I said, started the business full time, so it's not like I had a salary. And I made the sacrifice of moving back home. And I lived at home for 4 years, which is like crazy, until I moved to New York. But it was a sacrifice because I wanted to be grown, that we all, you know, like, and have my own apartment. And then even the sacrificing of comfort, because my friends who are in corporate jobs, they're living differently. You know, they're buying new cars or buying houses. Shoot, they have a 401k, they have a darn savings account, you know, like those little things. And so, again, I'm not saying negate being responsible, because I don't believe that at all. Like, I definitely had a plan and things of that nature, but it is some of those sacrifices of the comfort to build what you ultimately want.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So you said fear is the biggest thing. So breaking down those barriers of fear first for people, and then making sure, like you said, what you think and what you're doing actually comes into alignment is next. What do you think is the third piece? I think those are really important. Fear, making sure what you think and what you're doing is what is actually happening. That they're congruent, you know. I think that's really important, because a lot of times we say one thing but we do another, obviously, right? So assessing, like, okay, does this all line up? And then the third piece would be, what do you think, what is the next step?
Yeah, so I think it really starts with figuring out what you want. I think that would be the first step, and really like aligning
Did I
your
get the
actions.
steps wrong?
I think you did it right. Yeah, I think that's just step one is like even more basic, because before you determine your fear, you have to determine what you're afraid of. So it's almost like, okay, like, what is it that I really want? What is my Ikigai? So first determining that by asking the questions of like what do I love? What am I good at? What does the world need? And what can I get paid for? And then figuring out, okay, what's stopping me from having this? Is it fear? Like, what emotion is it? And if it's fear, how do I overcome that fear? Do I need to work with somebody? Do I need to test myself and just do it? Do I need to just say yes, take 10 seconds of insane courage and be Gary Graverson?
Yeah.
Do you need to, whatever it is, maybe change your environment, surround yourself with different people, or get out of, it doesn't have to be out of the United States, because that's sometimes really extreme, right? But just out of the current environment that you're in, to be like, how can I change my perception and come up with a new reality? Because everything in your life is perception. Me sitting on this couch, you have a different perception of this conversation than I have a different perception, right? Everything is about perception, and our reactions will be different based on how we perceive things. So even taking the Ikigai, figuring out what's stopping them from fulfilling that Ikigai, and then finding out, okay, what do I need to do to get it? What action can I take based on this emotion that I'm feeling that's stopping me from getting there? Maybe it's getting a coach, maybe it's doing it on your own, maybe it's putting yourself in a new environment. But I think that those are big steps, but those are 3 things that I think everybody wants. And it might sound obvious, but it's simple, but it's not easy. So it takes a lot of work to get there, but the process is super simple.
That's the thing. We're like, oh yeah, get over fear. Cool.
Yeah. It's like, okay, thank you. I'll write that one down. It's like, it takes a
I
little
didn't think about that one.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
Exactly.
It's all new to me.
Yeah.
But it is, we all know, but it's so much harder, like you said.
Yeah.
It's so much harder. So that is kind of, I mean, I've been in that place, and that's my prayer for other people, is to let go of that fear, let go of those inhibitions, and step into your purpose. And I feel like, obviously, God, the universe, everything will come and support you in that
Yeah.
when you do.
Yeah. I 100% believe that. Like, when you put that out there to the universe, you'll start to notice, if you've ever read The Alchemist, everything will just move out of its way to help you get there.
Everything will align in your favor.
Yeah. I truly believe that, and I prove that every day in my life. Like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. Even flying here, I was supposed to fly right to Atlanta. I ended up getting redirected to New York City, sitting next to a girl who just came from a retreat. We ended up talking about spirituality for 8 hours, and I was like, even if it was worth it for me to fly to New York instead of Atlanta, just to sit next to this girl, I learned so much, talked to her so much, we exchanged so much information. It's like, you never know what pieces will be placed in your life to help you get to your end goal, or to get to manifest this reality that you really desire. You don't even have to call it a goal, right? It's your purpose and your reason for being. So I think that's what Tribe 29 is.
Your reason for being.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, I'm like, oh. I'm like, these conversations are making me do the work too. So it's probably like, I do this because this is what I need for my life. And then I'm like, other people have to have it, need it too. But it's so important. That's so important. I guess, what is your takeaway? What is your word of advice for letting go and lighting your Ikigai?
Ikigai. Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah.
What would you say? What is your last parting word of wisdom that people can just hold on to as they take this leap, as they journey into this life? Whether it's entrepreneurship or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, I would say, if you're not living in alignment with your purpose, really dig in deep and figure out what's holding you back from that. Is it money? Is it fear? Is it family expectations? Is it just not feeling like you are, maybe feeling like you're too young, or feeling like it's just not time? And if you're in this position where you're like, okay, next year, as soon as I do this, I'll be happy. As soon as I do this, everything will come aligned. Think about, what can you do today to make yourself happy and at least get on track to being there, versus as soon as I do this, I'll be happy. As soon as I do this, I'll be happy. Like, how can you do it today? Like, what's one thing that you can do today to align with that? And really
That's so
step
important.
into that purpose. Yeah.
Because I think, and myself included, is we always think about the big looming things, right? Like, as soon as I move or get to a new city or get this new job or have more money, like, the more money is not necessarily coming tomorrow. You know, like, I am not gonna be I'm not gonna glow up. We're like, oh, as soon as I glow up, my glow up is not happening tomorrow. Like, there's processes, there's little things that we can do that change our reality. And so I think that's important. So starting today, starting now in this moment, how do we make our lives look the way that we want them to look?
Yeah. I would start by asking yourself those 4 questions and really just writing them out.
4 questions again.
All right. What do you love?
Yes. What do you love?
Yeah. What are you really good at?
What are you good at?
What does the world need?
Okay.
And what can you get paid for? And can you find a similarity between those to light your Ikigai?
I love it. Let's light these Ikigais. Light the Ikigai. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Chelsea.
Yeah,
I
thank
so
you.
enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
there's so much light that's going to come out of this for people. So.
You're welcome.
I hope you were inspired by this conversation on The Journey with Blue. Join me on Facebook and Instagram and subscribe on YouTube to continue the encouragement. And remember that whatever road you decide to take, the beauty lies within the journey. Until next time, Blue.